Welcome to Wines We Drink, a podcast for wine lovers and learners. I'm Charlotte Norsworthy Varnum, and together with my counterpart Keith Herndon, we'll be exploring a new wine each week. Keith is a lover of wine, and I am a learner of wine, and we hope that you'll continue learning and sipping along with us.
Well, hello again, everyone. We're so excited to have you with us during this third season of our podcast, Wines We Drink. I'm Charlotte Norsworthy Varnum, and you're joining us for our third episode in what my partner and I like to call our summer fun project. And speaking of my partner, he's right here with me. I'm pleased to introduce my co-host, Keith Herndon, a certified wine sommelier.
Charlotte, thank you, and I'll also give a big welcome to all of those wine lovers and learners who help us make this podcast special. We do it for our listeners.
Absolutely. So listeners, keep that feedback coming. And once again, we are here today recording at Tapped Wine Bar, where proprietors Todd and Angela Hurt have been exceptional hosts for the first 3 episodes this season.
Yes, we launched our third season 2 weeks ago and featured a great interview with Todd. And so everyone stay with us because he will be back today as part of the finish, which is what we're calling the ending segment of each episode this season.
And if you missed our opening episode, you can find it along with all of the other episodes from this season, Season 2 and Season 1, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Charlotte, in last week's episode, we drank a wonderful example of a rosé from southern France, aptly named Summer in a Bottle. And I'm eager to share today's selection with you because we're staying with a similar production technique, but we're taking it in a little different direction.
Okay, well, I, as we all know, loved last week's episode, so this sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
Well, as we explained last week, rosé is made when the clear juice from a red grape varietal is allowed just a little contact with the skin, right? That little contact with the tannins in the skin provides that pink color. Well, today we're drinking a Pinot Grigio, but one that has allowed the skins of the grape to have some contact with the juice to create a style known as Ramato. That word originates from the Italian word rame, which means copper. So the wine we're drinking today is a copper wine.
Whoa, okay. I mean, I'll be honest, I'll tell our audience, you could probably expect that I have never had a Ramato-style Pinot Grigio. So I'm looking forward to tasting this wine today, having this experience. Let's go ahead and get started. What bottle of Ramato Pinot Grigio are you opening for us today?
Well, we're opening a 2021 bottle from Italy's Scarbola Winery. This is a boutique winery in the Friuli region. It was established by Walter Scarbola in 1982. Walter had developed a passion for viticulture from his father Gino, who had grown grapes in the 1960s. And now Walter has passed along that winemaking gene to his daughter Lara and son Mattia. They now jointly run the winery.
Wow. I love it when you bring wines to show that also have that family history behind the label. I think that contributes so much to the story element of what makes this wine that we're getting to drink today super interesting. So now, can we enjoy a bottle of this Scarbola family wine?
Of course. Let's start today's tasting. I'm going to pour a couple of glasses, and as I pour the wine, take a look at this copper color.
Okay,
right?
This is so interesting. Wow. Yeah, as you are pouring this wine, I can absolutely see why they call it copper. I was kind of thinking maybe it's more of a rosé and they're just calling it copper, but the color is absolutely this pinkish orangish tint that really you're looking at a penny.
Yeah, I mean, pinkish orange is a good way to describe the color, but I wouldn't want our audience to think the pink means rosé.
Right.
I think it's different, right?
It's much more distinct than a rosé, for sure. And it definitely also has more color than a typical Pinot Grigio, but it's certainly not overdone. It's still a muted orangey color, and the color is so nice looking. It's so appealing in the glass. So I have to dive in. I'm going to jump
Right.
straight in.
Go in for the only for the aromas first, right?
Okay.
For the sniff.
Deal.
So as you put your nose into the glass, what's the first aroma that comes to mind?
Wow. I mean, it's definitely a delicate aroma, especially compared to that Summer in a Bottle from last week. I'm definitely getting notes of citrus. So, certainly some lemon, some orange. Again, just like the color, though, it's more muted. And I'm getting some hints of, just something bright and crisp, like an apple, like a big red apple.
It's season 3, and after 2 summers of smelling wines with me, your nose is rounding into form, right? Okay. I also smell a lot of those tree fruits. In addition to apples, I'm getting some peaches and pears in there.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I'd say mostly pears.
Okay.
So take that first sip and tell me what comes to mind with the flavor profile.
Oh, man. This is nice. Nice and juicy. There's such a bright acidity. It immediately hits the tip of your tongue, and it's really backing up those citrus aromas. Oh, man. I have to go in for another.
Sure, and for our audience, let me add here, don't judge a wine on that first sip. You have to go back in for that second and third and sometimes even a fourth sip before that palate starts to unwind, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that's definitely what I'm experiencing too. That acidity is almost like trickery to the tongue. It feels like almost like a fizzy sparkle to it, but it's not a sparkling wine. And, those tree fruits that we were talking about coming through on the aromas, they're definitely there in that flavor profile. But again, all these flavors are really subtle, which is interesting. They live behind what I'm going to describe as a delicate, everything being delicate in this wine, but like a saltiness, kind of, my new favorite word is minerality. So kind of minerality, it really it's lingering on the tongue at this point.
Well, some of that saltiness you sense may very well be the terroir of this wine shining through, right? As we've discussed on this show in previous episodes and previous seasons, we know that terroir is that French concept of the land, its climate, its geography, all shining through and being expressed as part of the wine, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the label on this bottle talks about the geography as being tucked between the Julian Alps and the Adriatic Sea, and some of the production notes discuss this balancing effect of the sea breezes that flow through the vineyards. So I think perhaps this bottle is transporting you to the Friuli vineyard.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I definitely am feeling like I'm mid-transport right now. And one day I have decided I'm definitely going to have to go there in person. I say this about all of the wines that we drink, but I really just, how they describe it, you just want to experience those sea breezes in the vineyards for myself.
Right. Well, when you go, count me in.
Deal.
You know me and my wine travels.
Yeah.
Well, Charlotte, drinking Pinot Grigio and its twin, Pinot Gris, is not new to this podcast, right? We featured an Italian Pinot Grigio in episode 8 of the first season and an Oregon Pinot Gris in episode 5 of last season. But I think you understand how the production technique producing a Ramato style has turned this grape varietal into a completely different kind of wine, right? There was cold maceration for 12 hours, right? And the fermentation was all in stainless steel, and then it aged on lees, and lees is the dead yeast in sediment, right? And it aged on that for about 5 months, also in stainless steel, so there was no oak involved. So that complexity, some of that flavorness you're getting is all from that, that skin tan and that skin contact.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's, no oak involved. All of that nice color, like you said, coming from the skins. And it really is almost creating like a tea-like finish. How am I trying to say this? It kind of tightens the wine. There's like a astringency to it, or maybe.
Yeah, well, that's a great description. I've seen tasting notes that talk about this wine having a delicate grip at the finish, right?
Yeah, it certainly has a hold on me. So I really do love this wine. I love its vibrancy and the sense of place that comes through. It kind of demands your attention when you're drinking it. So how much can our audience expect to pay for this wonderful bottle?
Well, most of our listeners should be able to find this at around $20 or below, believe it or not, right?
Yeah.
The Vivino app lists a national average price of $17, and that represents an amazing value, as the Vivino app also ranks this Ramato style wine as among the top 5% wines in the world.
Wow, yeah. And that's such an exceptional price for it being so highly rated.
Right. I think the Scarbola Pinot Grigio we're drinking today is a great example of this trend toward limited maceration wines. Those wines that have some skin contact, as we said last week, rosés are having a renaissance period, right? They're very popular, but there's also growing popularity of wines referred to as orange wines. Those are wines from white grapes with some skin contact to give them an orange hue. All right, there's no orange juice in orange wines, right? Okay,
right. That's a Mosel.
Right. Pinot Grigio grapes, however, they turn gray or grayish purple when they ripen. So the skins don't behave exactly as a red grape would behave to create a rosé, and they don't behave the way a white grape would to create an orange wine. So these purplish gray skins, the tannins there give this wine a copper color, and I think it creates a beautifully unique wine.
Wow, I would absolutely agree. There's definitely a rainbow being painted that we're learning. And as I've been sipping this wine, I've been thinking about how to maybe best pair it with food, so I'm eager to hear what your suggestions are.
Yeah, well, this is an incredibly versatile wine when it comes to pairing. It's got that bright acidity that you would expect from a Pinot Grigio, but it got some deeper complexity to it. So I'm going to say this is certainly a pizza wine.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
And it will be great with some soft cheeses, right? But for me, this wine was made to pair with the cured meats of our charcuterie board, right? I've got some prosciutto here on a plate for you, so have a bite of that prosciutto and take a sip of the wine.
Here we go.
Oh my.
Yeah. I'll have some with you.
You are so right. The saltiness of the meat and the salinity of the wine just combine, and it's just bursting in my mouth right now.
Yeah, the acidity in the wine complements the fattiness in the meat. The texture of the wine works with this style of meat. It's just a great party combination.
That's such a great point. I mean, I'm having a party right now in my mouth, and with you, with this wine and prosciutto. So I'm definitely going to go back in for a few more bites and sips while we take a break. We'll be back shortly with the show segment we call The Finish, and we will be joined by our host today, Todd Hurt, the proprietor at Tapped. Hello everyone, we are back from our break, and we are now in the portion of the show that we call The Finish. And once again, we are joined by Todd Hurt, the proprietor at Tapped. Thanks so much for hosting us at Tapped and for hosting us for the first 3 episodes of Season 3 and for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So Charlotte and I are drinking the Scarbola Il Ramato Pinot Grigio. I've poured you a glass, and there's some prosciutto there for pairing. So what do you think of this particular wine, Todd?
Oh, Keith, man, I love this wine. I love the color of it. I love the added flavor and smells that you get from the skin contact.
Right. Well, you introduced me to today's wine selection through a wonderful tasting event that featured the winemaker Mattia Scarbola live here at Tapped. How did you pull that off and get Mattia here from Italy?
Well, I have to thank my wife and some really cool wine reps. They saw the potential there and brought Mattia in, and I tell you, he was a real charmer. We filled the house that night.
Absolutely. So when you're planning your special tasting events, what are some of the things that you consider?
You know, in Athens, you have to consider the football schedule to start with, for sure, right? But we also look at wine prices to make sure that we're not going to outprice the tasting and that people would come to it.
I want to circle back and talk about pairing wine with food. In researching today's wine, I discovered that Walter Scarbola, Mattia's father, was also an acclaimed restaurant operator in Italy. You could tell from Mattia that he had that real love of food, and obviously he was influenced by his father. Food influences winemaking. How do you think about wine and food when you're making the selections that you present here at Tapped?
Oh, definitely. Food influences your perception of the wine. A good indication of that would be pairing a highly acidic wine with a high-fat food. Think champagne and fried chicken. Sounds like an odd combination, but have a sip of the champagne, then have a bite of the fried chicken, and then taste the champagne again. You will pick up on so many more nuances.
Noted. Okay, everyone, write this down. KFC mixed with champagne. No, I'm just kidding. So, okay, going back to this wine that we're drinking today, being a Ramato style wine, and we talked about in today's episode about the renaissance in rosé and the emergence of orange wines. So are you seeing more of your customers seeking out these kinds of colorful wines?
Definitely had customers coming in asking for it, and it gives us a great opportunity to explain it when they see it in the glass, and they're like, wow, I wasn't expecting a Pinot Grigio to be that color. Definitely like it. I like the added skin contact. I'm a red wine drinker, so to have a Pinot Grigio that has sat on the skins a little bit longer gives it some more character, and that makes it something that I would be interested in rather than the straight up Pinot Gris.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm going to go away from what's in the bottle to what's on outside the bottle for a moment. I like the wordplay that Scarborough uses on its label. The R in Ramato is separated from the rest of the word so that Amato stands alone. And I did a little research and I realized that in Italian, Amato means loved one. So there's a subtle meaning in that label, right? I mean, it's Ramato, but it's Amato, and then there's really a nice wordplay. So, Todd, do you think customers react to labels? All this work that wineries put into a label, do they really influence what people choose to drink?
Definitely, they do. A pretty label will sell wine. Sometimes a pretty label will sell bad wine, so be careful.
But you don't feature any bad wine here, right?
No bad wine here. No. But, how many times have you seen in the grocery or in the wine store a wine label with big old boulders and rocks and looks like the grape is really struggling, that vine's really struggling to produce? Well, the winemaker's trying to tell you something. That wine and that vine sacrificed itself so that you could have a really nice wine to drink.
We'll be back here at Tapped again later this season for our last 3 episodes of season 3.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Well, that's the finish for today's episode. Keith, where is our wine journey taking us next week?
We'll be recording back at our home base in my wine kitchen, but as I like to say, spiritually, right? We'll be heading to Marlborough and New Zealand to drink a wonderful bottle of Sauvignon Blanc. It's another summertime favorite of many of our wine drinkers.
Wow, okay, a New Zealand SB. I can't wait, and I wish I could be there in person. Thanks, everyone. Saying goodbye until next week.
Yes, thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Wines We Drink. Listen to our other episodes anywhere you get your podcasts, and be sure to follow us on Twitter @WinesWeDrink and on Instagram @TheWinesWeDrink. Cheers.